Oh, we had people waiting. We are sorry. It's my fault. It's not Michael. It's never Michael's fault. So everyone needs to know that. It's always my fault. I'm sorry for those who are waiting, which is quite a few of you. It's nice to see. Here we are, live streaming again. Michael noted in the pre-production meeting that last week we were wearing black in solidarity with our brothers and sisters. And this week we are back to our own people wearing white because that's who we are.
I think it's a psychological thing. I think we're angrier when we have black on, and we're a little more light-spirited when we wear white.
What kind of shit is that you're gonna say about black people? What?
It's just that we're looking at ourselves in the mirror.
Oh, black people are angry, huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just
next you're gonna say black women are angry.
No, but you see somebody wear black in a movie, and you're like, oh, that guy's a dark rebel persona. You see yourself in the screen, and you think, oh, I better have some righteous indignation on this. And you dress.
We are 2 minutes and 14 seconds into this show, and it's already a Klan meeting. I mean, just okay.
Okay.
Listen, can we talk about stuff that's not racist for a minute?
I mean,
I know you can't. Can you just give me a question so I can talk about something that's not racist for 60 seconds? Can we have just a moment where there's not white supremacy?
How's the weather?
You just can't do it. Yes. Oh, that that's good.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, how's the weather? That what that means. All right, man. Let's get real. We got shit to talk about.
Yeah.
Things are still happening at a rapid clip in Washington, D.C. like I've never seen in my entire life.
Oh, yeah. This is what I was trying to get at a little bit last week is for me, as somebody who has had zero political victories and zero hope of ever having his agenda materialize, this has sort of been my theme is when can we start celebrating? When can we enjoy that the impossible has happened and that something is actually happening that we would approve of? For us, it's Biden pulls out of Afghanistan after 20 years of a horrible war, or Obama has an Iran deal that, might bring the tensions of nuclear war down a little bit. These little things start happening, but we have somebody who's full hog reducing the size of government, full hog backing us down from the escalation in Ukraine. Things that we thought were never possible are actually just commonplace now.
I hear you. Yeah. I hear you. I mean, so today, this is the latest and maybe the greatest action of the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth, the new Secretary of Defense, gave a speech that I just watched in awe. I've never seen an American, certainly Secretary of Defense or really any American politician say such things. Just clearly stating, we will not support Ukraine. We don't think Ukraine should be in NATO. Russia will keep the territory it has conquered, and Europe should provide for the defense of Ukraine. And then he sort of says, at the end, well, of course, we are still fully committed to our partnership with Europeans and with Ukraine, but he then says, we're not going to support them anymore, and Europe should do it. It is absolutely a backing away from NATO. Now, is it a complete backing away? Is it an abandonment of NATO, which he claimed it wasn't? We'll see, but if I were a NATO head, a NATO Nick, whatever they're called, FAFO, no, NAFO, what was the freaks who were
the North Atlantic fellas with the
what
dog
profiles? NAFO, right?
Yeah, NAFO, yeah. Which, by the way, have all seemed to disappear ever since USAID fizzled out.
Right.
And
so, yeah. 90% of Ukrainian media is now shut down.
Yeah.
90% of all of Ukrainian media is shut down in the last 2 weeks. Has there been a clearer demonstration of the breadth and scope and depth of American imperial control over other countries. This is astonishing. So God bless him for ending the war in Ukraine, for making sure that Ukraine will not belong to NATO, which is nothing but a provocation to World War III. Huge. This is huge. I mean, remember when we used to talk about Ukraine every week? I mean, this is a big issue, major issue. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in that war for no good reason. Russia took 20% of the territory in the east and the south immediately after the invasion in 2022, and they've held it essentially ever since, with almost no change in the borders. And now Trump is saying, yeah, you're going to hold it forever, and Ukraine's not going to be in NATO. And that's all he's saying, which is just a complete defeat for Ukraine, for NATO, for NAFO, for all the NATO heads, for the entire foreign policy establishment of the United States, which has had NATO at the center of its moral universe since the 1950s. Hegseth went on to say, the whole speech was just stunning. He went on to say, listen, we are focused on China. We're not interested in Europe anymore as a security concern. I mean, wow. And Europe must take up the burden, increase its spending per country per capita from 2% to 5% on defense spending. You take over. If you want to defend yourselves from this imaginary Russian threat, which it is, it's remarkable how many people still think that Putin. I mean, let's just talk about this for a second, which it's at the nub of it. This very common belief among the foreign policy establishment and its supporters in media that Putin wants to, in his heart, deeply in his heart, he wants to invade, conquer, and colonize Belarus, not Belarus, sorry, the Baltic states, Poland
is next.
Ukraine, all of Eastern Europe, bring it all back in to the Soviet Empire and make it part of the Russian Empire again, which, of course, Russia is completely incapable of doing materially, and which Putin has never demonstrated any interest in doing, ever, never. It's an amazing fantasy. They have constructed a Hitler in their own minds. And is Putin an authoritarian? Oh, sure. Has he suppressed speech? For sure. However, people, when you start talking about Putin suppressing speech in Russia,
well, yeah,
what I want now is, yes, show me the list of people who've been put in prison for speech in Russia, and I will show you a list of people who have worked for USAID.
Oh, fair. But also, you could compare the people arrested for speech in Russia with people arrested for speech in an enlightened free society such as the UK. And in Russia, it's in the dozens, and in the UK, it's in the thousands, and it's for mild jokes and Facebook posts.
And how about Ukraine?
Yeah.
I mean, they put people in prison until they die in Ukraine if they oppose the war.
Yeah.
I just, again, I recommend everyone look at Glenn Deason's work. He was on Unregistered about a year ago. The author of the book Russophobia, the history of the fear, the paranoia about Russia in the West that goes back several centuries. That's the only way to explain it. There is a profound, essentially sort of racist, meaning irrational, kind of essentialist fear of the Russian people, the Russian government, Russian culture, the essence of Russia. It is perceived to be eternally a threat to the West. We will, if we are not vigilant and if we don't take action militarily in containing Russia, rolling back Russia, this is still to this day, since 30, 40 years since communism is dead, they will take over Europe. Somehow Putin, with his broke ass economy, which they keep telling us about, is gonna colonize European nation states, control the people in those nation states who the majority of whom don't want to be part of Russia, who have been rebellious against Russia for decades since 1991. Oh, Putin really thinks that he wants to conquer and colonize Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, and Ukraine. I mean, it's so obviously a fantasy and impossible. There's zero reason to worry about it. And what we need to do is do exactly and what Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth did today and yesterday, which is to declare forcefully, forthrightly, and publicly that we will no longer support the Ukrainian regime. We don't think Ukraine should be in NATO. We will oppose the inclusion of Ukraine in NATO. And we think Europe, if they want to protect this country from Russia's imaginary aggressions, they should do it themselves. I mean, this is the best, possibly the best statement on foreign policy by a presidential administration. I was going to say in my lifetime, maybe ever. I don't think I've ever seen, I don't think there has been a presidency that has renounced its obligation to protect the people of the world more forcefully than this. This is an amazing moment, and I'm here for it. I love it. I welcome it, even though I have all sorts of reservations about Trump and Hegseth otherwise. And I think, of course, on the Middle East and Gaza, their ideas are ridiculous, but they haven't done anything yet. But on this, on the Ukraine war, they have just ended the Ukraine war. It is over now. Trump announced that he had a meeting with Putin yesterday and a meeting with Zelensky today. And if you just read the statements, it's clear that he is listening to Putin and telling Zelensky what to do. It's over. Russia's won the war. Trump will allow Russia to hold the 20% of Ukraine, the Donbass in the east, Crimea in the south, and that's it. And no NATO inclusion. So this is an outright, complete 100% victory by Russia, securing its border, its western border, against this hostile foreign military alliance that was attempting to move its troops and its military installations right up to the border with Russia. That's over. Russia has won. Thank God. Not that I'm pro-Russia, but I wanted them to win this war, which they did. That's what Trump just did. He and Pete Hegseth just declared that the United States and Ukraine are surrendering. And Russia will be allowed to keep, as part of its sovereignty, the Donbass and Crimea in perpetuity. And Ukraine will not be a member of NATO. Amazing, amazing, amazing turn of events. Complete pivot. Now, the thing is, man, we don't even know, because Ukraine and Russia both lie about the death toll. But pretty much everybody who's studied this knows that it's in the hundreds of thousands total deaths. My best guess is it's for Russia, it's probably between 50 and 100,000. And for Ukraine, it's in the multiple hundreds of thousands dead. I mean, this could have been ended in February of 2022 when the war started, when the invasion started. Biden could have made this exact same deal right then. Because remember, Russia seized the 20% Donbass and Crimea, or had seized both those regions by March of 2022. Like immediately after the war started, Russia controlled those regions. And so we've been fighting over that and killing hundreds of thousands of young men and women in Ukraine and Russia over that to this day. But we end up right there at the beginning. Russia controls that territory and the war ends. So we could have done this a long time ago, but we didn't, because of America's imperial ambitions to control Europe, to control the Eurasian landmass, and to control the entire world. And Trump walks in and virtually on day one says, we're not going to do this because I'm not a part of this American and exceptionalist imperialist ideology. I've never believed in it. I don't think we should do regime change. I don't think we should occupy countries in perpetuity. We should leave well enough alone. Let local governments and the people in local populations determine their own fate, make their own alliances, provide for their own protection and their own defense. The United States does not need to be the savior of the world. He has said this multiple times. J.D. Vance has said it multiple times in so many words, and we are actually seeing it today come to fruition. The Ukraine war is over, everyone, after 3 years. And it is over on terms that are entirely favorable to Russia. Russia won this war. Trump has just surrendered. That's what just happened. That's what Hegseth did. The United States just surrendered to Russia in this proxy war, a proxy war between the US aligned forces in Ukraine versus the Russia aligned forces in Eastern Donbass and Crimea. That's what the war has been. And now Russia has won, and the Trump administration, the United States of America, has declared that Russia has won and we are surrendering. That's what that statement was. It was a surrender, which is exactly what it should have been since February 2022. The United States should never have been involved, and Russia should have been allowed to protect the people of Ukraine, of Eastern Ukraine, from the bombing, the strafing, the artillery shelling round the clock from the Ukrainian government against the people of Eastern Donbass, who all 90+% wanted to be part of Russia, who spoke Russian, whose language, Russian language, was banned by the Ukrainian government. And that's really what precipitated this whole fight in 2014. They've all won. Civilians who have been bombed and killed walking the streets of Donetsk and Lugansk for years and years since 2014, they've won. They are now protected. They will be safe because they fought and they protected themselves, and they asked for protection from the Russian military, which I have zero sympathy for the Russian military. I have zero feelings for the Russian military. But if I were living in Donbass in 2014, 2013, 2012, or ever, and like 90+% of the people who lived there identified as Russian, spoke the Russian language, and wanted to be part of the Russian Federation, this is a great moment, a great victory, and we should celebrate it. This is something else. The Trump administration has really stepped up and done a great thing for humanity, which is such an odd thing. Again, in assessing the Trump administration, its second phase here, as you were saying earlier, like, it's the most spectacular successes ever. And then there's these really weird, horrific sounding ideas like the Gaza occupation proposal that he's made. So, but anyway, on Ukraine, this is what so many of us for 3 years have been calling for and saying was inevitable. It was just a question of how many people would die before we got to this. As Trump has said many times, Biden could have done this exact same deal 3 years ago, but he didn't. We would have the exact same consequence, exact same outcome if Trump had done this. I mean, if Biden had done this 3 years ago, with about 500,000 people fewer dead. So God bless Donald Trump. The golden era is here. The golden age of America is here, at least on this one very important question, which is American foreign policy as it concerns Eurasia. This is a whole new ballgame. The United States have just declared, and I recommend everybody watch Pete Hegseth's statement. It's about 15 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube. He was clearly telling Europe, and that's who was there. This is the Ukraine Contact Group, which means the European representatives of all the European countries that have supported Ukraine, like Britain, France, etc. He was very clearly, forcefully, unambiguously telling them, yeah, we're not here anymore. We're leaving. I mean, we'll leave some of our troops. We'll still have bases in Western Europe, of course. But this is not our primary concern. It might not even be any concern of ours, because it should be your concern, because it's in Europe and you should pay for your own security. So if you think that Putin is going to invade and conquer Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and Poland, you deal with it. You're rich, powerful nations. You can afford that. You can build your militaries up, which we have neutered since World War II deliberately. Again, that's American. That's American doing. America neutered all the militaries of Western Europe so that the United States could replace them as the hegemon in Europe, thereby controlling European culture, politics, and society since 1945, which we have done. That's over, man. This is an amazing moment. From 1945 to 2025, we lived under the American Imperium in Europe, where we were the hegemon. All the major European states were vassals to us. All the German and French and British politicians ever since 1945 have talked as if we are their massa, their daddy, their overseer, their caretaker, and their savior. It's amazing. I mean, everybody should go look at, just watch any or listen to any speech or statement by any Western European political leader since 1945. This is not an exaggeration. When they talk about America, and it sounds like the most ridiculous, jingoistic, nationalistic American nutbags you've ever heard of. They are absolutely, totally dependent on US government beneficence and oversight and protection. And that is now beginning to end. We have a new phase in global history beginning now. This is an amazing moment. Welcome to your golden shower. I mean, dawn.
Yeah. The golden age of America.
Wait, what is it? Age. I'm sorry.
Age.
It was,
the golden age.
Like shower, dawn. Golden dawn is the fascist party in Greece. This is a dawn.
Yeah.
DAWN, right? Okay.
Yeah. Sun rising up, but it's a golden age to be followed by a golden age.
It's golden. It's the color of urine. Whatever it is, it's just the golden.
Of the sun. Think of the sun.
Oh, the sun. I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I always forget. Right.
So, the only people who wouldn't see this as progress, who have dissident politics, would be the accelerationists, anarchists, and the people who would say that this doesn't defeat NATO, this strengthens NATO, this takes NATO's energy away from an unwinnable war, and it takes the burden of responsibility off of the United States and puts it back on Europe, and it follows Trump's explicit goal of strengthening NATO by telling the other members to step up. So it used to be that, you know, the United States did 98% of everything, and and it was like barely even a front for this European pan-global union. But now it seems like if you replace the incompetent leadership that was the Biden administration and leading us to nuclear war and doing such horrible decisions that the system itself would collapse, now you have the system backing off from certain death and strengthening itself to possibly endure for longer. Same thing with Hegseth being a recruiting phenomenon and being a competent face of the military for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I was skeptical about Hegseth going into this, as I've said on this show, but that this was his first, I think, public statement on policy. I like the guy. Again, not as much. I like him even more for the fact that he seduced a wife and a mother of 2 children to come down the hallway in his hotel to have sex with him when her husband and their children were in the hotel room down the hall. I respect that more, but this is pretty good. No, it's a new era. Now, the thing is, Israel, and Trump's attitude toward Israel, Trump's policy toward Israel, Trump's discourse about Israel, MAGA's Pete Hegseth discourse about Israel, the Trump administration's, the way they talk about Israel. This is the glaring, obvious, ridiculous, horrendous, blood-soaked contradiction in the middle of MAGA ideology.
Oh,
and they are going to have to resolve this.
Before we get there, one more thing I want to say on this. Remembering when the Afghanistan war ended in 2021 and we had a little bit of optimism, we were like, oh, Biden might still be making decisions and, you know, he might have some interests at heart. And it took some bravery to actually pull out of Afghanistan. And he probably contradicted some military leaders who wanted to stay there forever. And yay, that war's over. But, you know, it was all to prepare for the Ukraine war that happened 6 months later. If the United States goes to war in a hot war or a proxy war with China in the next year or 3 or 6 months, then this was kind of all for naught, right?
Was it Jake Sullivan or Tony Blinken? It was one of the two who said this. They said that American support for Ukraine in the war against Russia could not have happened had the United States not disengaged from Afghanistan. That we couldn't afford in multiple ways to support both Ukraine and Afghanistan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out the American empire has finite resources. Turns out, even though they've always wanted to since the founding fathers, have always wanted to rule the globe, even with rich ass America, we can't do it. We don't have enough resources. We can only fight 1, maybe 2 wars at a time. But then again, since 1945, we've lost every single war the United States has fought. And every single one of those wars the United States initiated. Every one of them, the United States chose as a government to begin those wars, to enter those wars. And in every case, we haven't just lost, but it has been an immense catastrophe. From Korea to Vietnam, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, every single one has been a catastrophe in which the United States has been humiliated and defeated, usually by barefoot peasants in third world countries. So I think with the ascendancy of Trump and J.D. Vance and the America First movement, and I've pointed to the contradictions in their thinking, and Israel's the biggest contradiction, but there is a true America First ethos, or at least sentiment among the masses of MAGA, I would say, that is going to bring the American empire down as we know it. I don't think we will have 500 to 800 military bases across the world in the next 10 years. I don't think NATO will look the same 10 years from now, or even 5 years from now. I think NATO will be largely run and funded by European states when Trump is done here. America might still be a member and still might enforce various things and contribute intelligence and maybe funding here and there, but Trump has broken the back of the post-war US-European alliance and the whole ideology around it. The whole rationale for it, he has destroyed with just a few words. Now, then we have to now look to see what this means about China. Does this mean that we are going to go to war with China? Because he and Vance and the whole MAGA movement, Bannon in particular, have been calling for some kind of aggressive action against China, either economic sanctions, universal economic sanctions, or some kind of military action to protect Taiwan. We don't know, but this is now the question, and it's nice and focused and centralized around the question of China, which is better than just asking questions constantly about every U.S. intervention around the globe. MAGA and Donald Trump, I think in the first 3 weeks of this administration, have declared that the U.S. is not in the business of empire. It's not in the business of empire. We will support Israel for reasons that need to be explained by Trump and MAGA. And we will be aggressive and belligerent toward China for reasons that also need to be further explained by MAGA, although they've done a pretty good job of that. But other than those two places, right? Am I right about this? Trump and MAGA have declared forcefully, forthrightly, and clearly for 3 weeks plus that the United States is out of the rest of the world. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I think they're less hawkish officially than the Biden administration was on China. I think they've like explicitly walked back on China and said we're seeing them as a competitor, not so much as an adversary. The word adversary has come back, I think, a little bit with what Vance said about AI, but it's always been in terms of a competitor thing. Like we want better technology than them. We want, better trade than them. As opposed to if they take Taiwan, we're gonna take that back by force or something. Or all these veiled threats Biden had.
Yeah, right, and I agree, and I think I got to say Trump has made many statements, and he's been fairly consistent on this since he took office. When asked whether he will bomb Iran, whether he will bomb Gaza, and he has said, "No, I have no interest in doing that. I don't want to do that." And he has said repeatedly he has sympathy for the people who live in those places, especially in Gaza. Trump doesn't want to kill people. He doesn't like it. He's the first American president who doesn't like killing people. That's true. You can look at the history of American presidents and what they've said about wars, about American wars. Did they ever express this kind of sympathy and concern for dead civilians and dead people in foreign nations that the United States has killed that Trump has? No, you simply can't. They were always just interested in conducting foreign policy to achieve American national interest, et cetera, et cetera. Trump has a visceral hatred of war that he continually puts forward that I've never heard from any kind of American politician. And I think it's real. And this is what I will hang my hat on, actually, in supporting at least the general thrust of Trump's foreign policy. Gaza is the one big, weird, crazy exception, but we don't know exactly what he means still to this day. Although he had this big press conference with King Abdullah of Jordan yesterday or today, in which he doubled down on this Gaza plan for the United States to take control and own Gaza. And he made it a little more clear about the specifics of this. It looks clearly like what I said a week ago, that he is lobbying actively all the Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, etc., to put their oil money into funding housing for Palestinians to relocate to, either in their countries or in other countries entirely, to leave Gaza, but to leave Gaza for a better life materially, where they will live, as he keeps saying, in nice housing without the fear of being, as he says, murdered, without naming who the murderer is. Yeah, I mean, I think that plan, as we said last week, it's an interesting question. Will those of us who are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause consider that to be a victory or a defeat? If he grants large amounts of money to every Palestinian citizen of Gaza, if he has housing that is good housing that's provided to them outside of Gaza, if they can actually do what he's promising, it's a tough question for the Palestine Solidarity Movement, because it would mean the defeat of the Palestinian resistance, and it would mean the probably eternal victory, the permanent victory of Zionism in Israel, because the Palestinians, as Trump is hoping, would take the deal, take the money, take the housing in other nations, and leave Gaza and never come back, which of course has been the cause of Palestinians for more than 100 years. Their attachment to that particular land is what they've been fighting for from the beginning, because they don't have modern Western ideas about mobility and freedom and disattachment to land, like soil and blood and soil. That's not an American Western concept. That's very much an older Eastern European and Middle Eastern concept that apparently the Palestinians have held, but most of us in the West don't understand because we move all the time. People in America and Western Europe, especially America, move all the time, city to city, town to town, state to state, country to country, and we don't feel sad about it usually because we don't have that kind of blood and soil attachment to particular land. Palestinians do. You could call it a pre-modern mentality, which is fine. That makes sense to me. I have not judged it ever, nor will I ever, because people's beliefs and their attachments, their emotional attachments to anything is not for me to decide. Palestinians, for whatever reason, have decided for about 100 years that they are attached to that land and they will resist in perpetuity any attempts to take that land from them. It's simple. Would I make that decision? No, I would leave Palestine. I would have left Gaza a long time ago if I were forced to live there and tried to find a life elsewhere. But that's not me who lives there. It's people who don't think that way, who do have an attachment to that land, which, by the way, as Trump keeps saying, is a beautiful piece of land. It's not just any kind of land. It's on the Eastern Mediterranean, beautiful beaches all along it, gorgeous weather, similar to Los Angeles weather. So we don't know yet, but he met with King Abdullah of Jordan, who proved himself once again to be a toady of Israel and the United States because he is nodding along and supporting Trump's ridiculous plan for the United States to conquer, take over, and own Gaza, and then flatten it, as he said, and redevelop it and build an entirely new civilization in Gaza, in which some of the Gazan residents will be able to live, and I guess some of the Israeli settlers will also be able to live in. He doesn't explain that part. But so we don't know. I'm reserving judgment to some extent, even on his ridiculous plan for Gaza, because nothing has been enacted and nothing has been clarified as to what he means. But man, on Ukraine and Trump's general sentiments that he stated about foreign policy and America's relationship to the rest of the world, from my perspective as a left, libertarian, anarchist, lifelong anti-war, anti-imperialist activist, someone who's cared about war and American empire more than any other issue for my entire life, this is a remarkable shift. This is a great, great moment. It's not perfect. There probably will be things, probably especially in the Middle East, that will result in the deaths of many innocents for American imperial interests. But in general, I gotta say, the rhetoric, the discourse, the general vibe, the tone, the way in which Trump and Hegseth and Mike Walls and all of his foreign policy experts and advisors are talking about America, this is the beginning of the end of the American empire. No question. And for that,
yeah,
I applaud him. He doesn't know this. He doesn't know this yet, but I applaud him for it.
I'm sure he's watching from a burner right now. But
he is. I mean, some Trump people do watch this show. I know that for a fact, but yeah.
So I think the fall of the American empire was inevitable. I think this is just a competent management of it to where there's a soft landing with minimal fallout from it. I think, the last really 50 years, 80 years, 10, 20 years have been just horrible, horrible decisions that have done nothing but admired us into our own certain defeat, like the Soviet Union. But it seems like you have competent people rolling it back. And I wonder if those nerds who run the atomic clock will put the minute hand back now, since we are way farther away from nuclear war than we ever were under the Biden administration. Like, just the energy of steamrolling into these unwinnable conflicts with escalation, no way going back. I genuinely feel a relief. And most people actually do. They just don't want to acknowledge it.
Amen. Amen. You're talking about the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists who've had what's it called? The Armageddon clock going as their sort of central prop for about 50 years, which is their way of sort of gauging how close we are to nuclear Armageddon. Mm-hmm. And it's always close to midnight, which is not wrong. But in recent years, they put the hour hand or the minute hand very close to midnight, suggesting or telling us that we are closer than ever to nuclear Armageddon. And now you're right, Michael Weimer, you are totally right. We are now further from that than possibly ever before. I have right now, given what Hegseth just said, given the fact that Trump just had this meeting with Putin and Zelensky and what he said about those meetings, I am now pretty sure I will not worry about Russia, about American relations with Russia, at least for 4 years. I think that issue is now done, settled. It's not a threat anymore. It will not result in World War III. We will not be trading nuclear bombs and missiles with Russia, at least during Trump's administration. I know we have at least 4 years of no World War III. And for that, I am very grateful and very happy. This is a wonderful thing. I mean, the fact that Trump and the emissary's name, I forgot. What's his name? Not Witkoff, but anyway, that the Trump administration has now established talks with the Russian government, with Putin and the Russian government, that the United States is now actively, consistently discussing these issues with Russia. People may not know this, but there have been zero diplomatic relations, meaning the US and Russia have not talked at all for 3 years.
Yeah. We talked to Stalin, you know.
Huge.
We talked to Khrushchev. Yeah.
We fought a war with him on his behalf. We sent weapons and money to the Soviet Union for years. We actively cooperated and supported the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin for years to defeat Germany and Japan. So yeah, this is a new thing. The fact that the United States was not even speaking to Russia for 3 years terrified me every day, because accidents happen. Ships and planes run into each other accidentally as they're traversing the oceans and the skies. This has always happened. And those accidents can lead and often have led to major escalations if there is no diplomatic connection between the two nations. And so we are lucky we got through that 3 years without a hot war with Russia, without sending missiles into Russia, and vice versa. So now, I have zero problem. I mean, I will not be worried about Russia for at least 4 years. I know that. So huge. It's just so weird that Trump is so beholden to either Miriam Adelson or AIPAC or Jared Kushner, that he has these absurd attachments to Israel and supporting it continually. But that's the last remaining contradiction within the MAGA movement, the America First movement. Once they find out what Israel is all about, what the relationship between Israel and the United States is all about, I do trust in my heart that they will see it as something that needs to be ended. If you are truly America First, truly an American patriot, truly interested in world peace, and truly interested in ending the forever wars in the Middle East, the United States has been mired in since the 50s. And we can now stop sending our young men into deserts to kill and die for no good reason. I do think this is epic. This is a pivot in American history that we just witnessed today, and I'm here for
it. I think Israel's position is of such great power and influence in the United States government that any president coming in has to be overtly loyal to them, regardless. That's just such a web to untangle.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. But the thing is, Trump is such a radical. Like, why is he not understanding this? He sees through everything else, right? He's so able to see underneath the propaganda and the ideology about every other issue. He just cuts through it because he's not been a part of it, except for this one thing. Can you explain that to me as a MAGA supporter and Trump voter? Why is it that Trump is so easily manipulated and blinded, I suppose, by the Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby? Why is that?
It's above my pay grade. I think it might have to do with him wanting to stay alive. I think it might. Like, did you see the gift that Netanyahu gave him with the pager in the stump as like a little token of their cooperation? Doesn't that seem like a veiled threat? Like, hey, Mr. President, glad you're here. The Mossad has been doing these operations, and we were able to kill people via their electronic devices. And here's a little token that you can put on your desk to know that we can kill people by their electronic devices.
Netanyahu was like, yo, Don, like, the two guys who tried to kill you were a bunch of, like, a couple of loser crackers who couldn't even shoot a rifle straight.
That was your government trying to kill you. Wait till my government tries to kill you.
Yo, we have been the world leaders in assassination for 50 years now. You think we can't take out? I mean, how many people have the United States, as Israel, assassinated since 1967? Since its founding, since 48, since before its founding. I mean, they bombed the King David Hotel, killing about 100 civilians just to help kick out the British so that they could take control of Palestine. Ronan Bergman, who is a writer for the New York Times, he's Israeli. He, I believe, also worked for the Mossad at some point and is considered to be sort of the best Israeli-American journalist on Israeli national security issues. He wrote a whole book. His last book came out, I think, last year. What is it called? Wake Up and Kill, something like that. It's about the history of Israel's assassination programs, which go back to before the founding of the state. So that's what they've really depended on for their national security, is assassinating opposition leaders, resistance leaders, which included heads of state, which included heads of massive movements. I mean, so they can take out Trump if they want to. Would they? I don't know, but they most certainly can if they want. So maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe he's just, it could be that Trump's whole pro-Israel front is simply coming from fear of the retribution that AIPAC and the Israeli state is famously capable of doing. What do you think? Or is that too anti-Semitic?
No, I think that has to play into it. And also just wielding political influence at that level. You need to have some loyalty to them if you want to play by the rules. Yeah, it's the programming on that is too deep to undo, and it's slowly happening underneath culturally. And I know you think Elon Musk is a big Zionist, but the amount of criticism of Israel that he allows on his platform to freely dissipate makes me think that there's something happening under the surface there. But yeah, I think it's something that needs to organically happen from the bottom up culturally before it can get to the top like that. And I think he will respond to it if it happens more culturally underneath, if it seems like that's where popular sentiment is. Because this was like not on the discussion table at all until October 7th. You know, it was. Yep. Yeah.
No, perfectly put.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're finally agreeing with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about time.
So I do want to talk about the Super Bowl. in
Let's go.
yeah.
I know you got to bring everything black back to the blacks. I get it, but go ahead.
Okay. I want to preface this by saying I believe Kendrick Lamar is an incredible performer. He makes great music. He's good at rapping. He's good at dancing. He is a good entertainer. He's good at what he does. He's talented. He deserves the stage. He got there by not compromising, and this performance didn't compromise at all. The problem is his politics aren't revolutionary at all. But beyond that, his performance at the halftime show, shoot, where was I going with this?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, so
okay, this is a broader.
Yeah.
This is a broader critique that Anna Kaczynski articulated best. I think it was on an episode of Rare Candy where they discussed the work of R. Kelly. But she said the saddest thing, or one of the worst casualties of Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement, was that Black culture is no longer cool anymore. Is that it became the establishment. It took itself too seriously. It stopped being fun. It stopped being celebratory and life affirming. It stopped being, hedonistic. It stopped being cool. It's now USAID funded revolutionary programs, cheesy vaccine ads. And I do believe Kendrick Lamar is a CIA agent, but the United States funded Dizzy Gillespie, and the United States funded a bunch of great artists to spread the message of Louis Armstrong. Yeah. So, that doesn't take away anything from his talent, but he is a plant of the CIA, which is, fine. I would probably take that money too if I was that talented. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are you saying about the greatest rapper of our lifetime?
It's just
of our generation.
Yeah. It's just the music is stuck in the past. I like his early stuff a lot more. You could argue that his newer stuff is better production wise. That has, more impressive production, more impressive flows, more impressive lyrics. But the spirit of his early music, which he decided not to play, the confessional stuff, the Christian aspect of Good Kid, Mad City, especially the unique social commentary and morality play that he had, and the psychedelic vision that he had of his early career, is kind of nowhere to be found. And it just seems to be popular, fake, revolutionary, easy targets. You're going after Drake. You're going after an easy target for liberals. I think Drake has way more. We've talked about this earlier when the beef first happened, but Drake explicitly has more revolutionary politics than Kendrick. He signed artists for a ceasefire, and he's, openly hedonistic and celebratory of the revolutionary spirit of hip hop, as opposed to the self-discipline, get on Barack Obama's playlist aspirations of Kendrick's music.
Genius.
Yeah.
Dude, bringing up Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong. So for those who don't know, in the 1950s, the CIA funded concerts, multiple tours by Louis Armstrong and his band, and by Dizzy Gillespie and his band, and multiple other Black jazz artists of Eastern Europe and Europe in general, Western Europe too. So Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong, and you can't find two more important icons of jazz music in America. You can't find two more important icons of American popular culture than Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie. We all love those two guys. They were the origins of what we call America's classical music. They are celebrated practically every year at the Lincoln Center with annual memorial concerts in their name, etc. Right? Yeah, in the 1950s and 60s, they were sent by the State Department and the CIA, funded and trained, on tours of Europe, playing their music in Europe, the idea was that they would show to the people of Eastern Europe what America has to offer, both non-racism and the material affluence that allows for us to have such gorgeous music as jazz. And so why wouldn't you overthrow your regime, your government, and join us and become like Americans? Because this is how we live. We have amazingly talented Negroes playing trumpet for us. And we love it so much, we fill auditoriums and stadiums and concert halls to listen to their music. And people dance to it night and day. Because we have freedom. Jazz was called the music of freedom at that time. Yeah, so this is this is the moment when we are now seeing that so much of American cultural history, political history, has been tied to America as a global superpower, and all of the interests that the CIA has pursued to strengthen and maintain that global superpower status. Yeah, so there you go. The history of this is so important to understand, because this is simply a continuation, or Trump is now ending that long history of CID, CIA, National Endowment for Democracy, the State Department funding cultural enterprises in other countries in the service of changing the regimes, overthrowing the government, so that the US could extend its power into those places. For the first time, we are now seeing the end of that discourse. It's an amazing moment. I don't know, I'm just sort of blown away. It's less than a month. And as I said, the intellectual ferment that Trump has brought by all these radical reforms and changes in policy is the best thing to me about this new era in politics, about the Trump administration, about the second Trump term. We are now talking about openly, with all sorts of new facts and information that were previously closed off to us, about the biggest questions in American political history, which have to do always with America and its relationship to the rest of the world. How do we relate to the rest of the world? Do we see ourselves as the saviors, the caretakers, the police for the rest of the world? Or do we see ourselves simply as a powerful, wealthy, important nation with a vibrant, multi-ethnic culture that exists among other nations as a peer that doesn't want to be invaded, doesn't want to be attacked, has a robust defense apparatus to prevent that from happening, but has no interest in extending its ideas, its morality, its politics, its power to other countries? This is the moment when we are finally having that conversation, that debate, that discussion. Should America be a global superpower, an imperialist power? Should we have any interest in the workings of other countries and nations around the world? Or should we simply protect ourselves with our military and just focus on our own wealth, our own health, our own vitality, our own multiple cultures, and make America great again? Which is what that would be. America cannot be great again until we end the global American empire. I don't know if Trump has fully understood that, but I think he's at least half understood that. And clearly, the course of his administration has been going in that direction. We cannot be a great country again until we are no longer a global country. We must focus on our own selves, our own nation, our own people, and let the rest of the world govern themselves. I think, again, Trump hasn't said that, Vance hasn't said that exactly right, but that's where we're headed with all of their policies and all of their discourse about foreign relations. And yeah, it's a new age, man.
It'll be
Golden age.
interesting It's a golden age for sure. It will be interesting to see how our entertainment changes. Because the NFL is like literally tied with the military. They, that halftime show was just as much an exercise of the United States military as the flyover was right before it. And the programming, exists to honor our troops. It's there. They have a partnership. The whole Pat Tillman thing. It's a patriotic, unifying display, very much entangled with the United States. It will be interesting to see if halftime entertainment goes back to being boring 80-year-old classic rock guys, if Jay-Z gets fired from his position, and if the vision of the American military stops being the DEI, diversity, Mark Milley version of the military, and we go back to having Creed in our halftime shows and go back to the early 2000s vision of America of rock music and beer.
Right. This is the question I've been having too for a long time now. Will the counterculture, as we understand it, continue under Trump, or what will the counterculture look like?
It's not countercultural anymore. That's the thing.
Right.
It's the dominant culture now. MAGA is the dominant culture. The vibe shift is completely happened. Taylor Swift was unfortunately booed at the Super Bowl, and Donald Trump was cheered. Perfect. So
I wouldn't say it's the dominant culture yet, but I would say it's the majority culture.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Well, anti-woke MAGA is the majority culture.
Yes.
But they don't run everything yet.
But they don't run everything yet, but smart liberals are starting to catch on and are starting to have to pretend to be anti-woke and pretend that that's passe. We're not woke anymore. That was all silly and goofy, and we're just more competent than you. We're just serious people. I think any serious person has to be anti-woke in some way. Anybody who actually has a finger on the pulse.
Right. No, that's clearly happening. I mean, I will say that there are still readouts of the left, and I know many of them because I went to high school and college with them.
Yeah.
And I still follow them on Facebook.
Who are devastated.
Saying, no. Well, yes, yeah. But they're also saying that unequivocally that anybody who voted for Trump, anybody who is MAGA, is a straight up literal Nazi, is the word they use, a literal Nazi, and that the resistance will continue apace through the duration of the Trump administration, that they will not stop, that they are just as radical, just as militant in their opposition to him as ever before. But I don't believe them. It's only been 3 weeks, and I guarantee you, in 6 months to a year, these people will be very quiet and will be mostly posting pictures of their cats and dogs.
Are any of them under 50? Are any of them under 55?
No. My friends are all over 50.
And
exactly.
To field a revolution in the streets, you need young people with muscles who can at least throw your Molotov cocktail. You need some upper arm strength for that. Yeah.
Yeah, upper arm strength. Yeah. Not a lot of push-ups and pull-ups in this crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the left is pretty much defeated, at least for the moment.
And defunded.
And defunded, yes. And they have government institutional support is evaporated now, which is big. And it might be everything, by the way.
Yeah.
The astroturfing on the left is immense. I mean, if you look at left-wing organizations in the United States, the vast majority of them take some kind of federal government funding, which is all now gone. And so I don't think they're going to last for very long. It's always been a top-down elitist movement. Leftists, communists, socialists, social democrats. Look at them. Look at the biographies of almost any of them. They all come from wealthy families. They all come from wealthy, elite families. AOC talks about being from the Bronx all the time. No, she's from Yorktown Heights, which is one of the bougiest, wealthiest little enclaves in Westchester County you will find. She moved there as a kid, as a young child. I think before she was 10 years old, she moved to Yorktown Heights and went to high school there. That's her background. They're all bourgeois children of wealth and privilege. And again, this is another thing that Trump and MAGA and Bannon and the working class, truly working class population base of that movement have shown us that the liberal elites are just that. They're elites with interests that have nothing to do with or are contrary to the interests of working class, ordinary Americans who must work for a living. They don't have a family that could move from the Bronx to Yorktown Heights. They're not from a family of generational wealth that allows for all sorts of facile political commentary because they have no skin in the game, because they have nothing to lose, nothing to sacrifice, nothing to fear, because they will always be secure financially, unlike 99% of Americans. This is a class war, and this is, again, maybe my favorite thing about MAGA and Trump. The right wing, they're the ones who brought in a class analysis again. Americans for my whole lifetime were considered to be all middle class. There are no classes in America. It's a middle class nation. Working class people, poor people, and wealthy people all said that they were middle class in terms of cultural values, etc. Trump is calling the lie on that. And he's showing us that, of course, America is a class society in which the poor and the working class do all the work, or much of the work, and get none of the benefits, and that the state, the government that they fund with their taxes, conducts operations and programs and rhetoric that are completely contrary to the interests of the people who fund them, which is the working class of America, the people who actually work for wages and salaries. This is all fantastic. Again, Trump, from a left-wing or libertarian perspective, in the first 3 weeks of his second administration, has been 90 to 95% not just good, but revelatory, revolutionary, salutary, and incredibly good in all sorts of ways, just not on Gaza and Israel and Palestine. But again, we don't even know where that's going to end up. But on almost every other policy issue, Trump has been a spectacular revolutionary force for 3 solid weeks now. We will see if it continues. How's that? Golden. That was pretty golden, right?
Golden.
Yeah, golden.
Yeah. Don't you feel? Yeah, I know. Don't you feel like your blood pressure lowering? Don't you feel a little bit more spry? Aren't the colors that you see outside a little bit brighter and more defined?
Well, no, but I get you. I know what you're saying. Yeah. I do know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The air is a little bit cleaner. But
smells good.
I do want to talk about the demoralization of the liberals. And what was it? There was some would-be assassin that was arrested recently. The elevation of Luigi Mangione as a cultural icon amongst the left. The increasing, this was predicted, but the increasing amount of desperation and despair that you're seeing from people. How these people need to be shown some level of compassion. And these people are in like a very dark place where their entire religion was like repudiated. Their entire belief structure in the world was repudiated. The arc of history, time after time after time, has been repudiated, and nihilism is being promoted, and nihilistic violence is being glorified. And for some of these people, it might seem like they have no other option than nihilistic violence. And I think we might see a rise in that. My hope is that they aren't competent to actually execute on it. But also, you are going to see a rise in people distancing from their families and suicide. Hopefully not. But this is, again, these people need to be shown compassion. But there needs to be.
You're talking about liberals.
Yes, liberals. There needs to be some sort of
they
liberal.
Need to be shown compassion.
Yeah,
liberals. That's what they need.
There needs to be a rehabilitation program.
Wait. You are saying? Let's just pause here.
Yeah.
Michael Weimer on February 12th, 2025, is saying that what liberals need right now is compassion.
Yeah.
Which tells us how bad the liberals are doing.
Yeah.
My goodness, it's that bad that you are calling for compassion for them.
You listen to Pod Save America, like they are so out of touch.
Wait, you're worried about Pod Save America? You want to save them too? Like this is Obama administration guys.
But they're powerless and clueless.
Michael.
Yeah.
No, you know what this is about, right?
What?
This is you're proving that you're actually a good Christian. Because
I mean, again,
what is it? Because wait,
yeah.
Hold on. Because what is it? All people, right?
Yeah.
All people?
Yeah.
All people are what? What are all people? They're all what? God's children, right?
Yeah.
Which means that we're all equal.
No.
Correct?
Well, I mean,
excuse me? Excuse
equal...
the fuck out of me, Christian. What? Where in the New Testament does it suggest that all people are not equal? I'm a Jesus guy. You know this, right? Jesus says, does he not, over and over again? I mean, it's kind of his whole shtick. All human beings are God's children, and I care about all of them equally, and so should you. Is that not Christ's teaching?
I'd be befuddled to find the word equally. I would say that he has a predisposition for the poor and chaste.
A predisposition.
I mean,
you're trying to tell me that's not the Christian ideology, that all people are equal under God's eye.
No, it's not that they're equal. That word equal is doing a lot of lifting here. I think all people are called to a path of salvation, that all people are capable of salvation. But the kingdom of heaven, I believe, and I think Jesus' parables point out that it is an exclusive club. Many are called, few are chosen. Yeah. But
okay, so for those who are very upset right now, we can offer a very simple remedy. The Bible course at Unregistered Academy will begin in 2 weeks. And if you want to get to the bottom of this, and I mean this, go to Unregistered Academy, and you can sign up at a monthly level for a very cheap price. You can take the Bible course, and you can deal with this extremely important central question in American politics, in global politics, in the history of Western philosophy and politics. Right there. This is the place to do it. I'm just saying, this is the issue that we are dealing with, and is so central. J.D. Vance brought it up with Ordo Amoris. Trump brings it up sort of indirectly, probably unintentionally, with multiple policies of his that seem to be not universalist and humanitarian, but very much nationalist and localist and particularist concerning America. So there's a conflict here between the professed Christianity of MAGA and its policies that seem to not give a shit about the people of the world outside of America, who, according to Christ, are all God's children, who deserve the same attention and love as anyone else. God, man.
Pope Francis.
This Bible course is going to be this Bible course is going to be so off the charts.
Pope Francis this week issued a letter to all the bishops in the United States.
I heard that he's gay. I heard that Francis is gay. Is that right?
I would assume that he's the Pope and he's chaste. I don't know what thoughts lie in his...
Except for the occasional bunghole. But yes, no, he's gay. Isn't that your critique? Isn't that your whole traditionalist Catholic?
There's a difference between
he's just a fag.
I would
Pope's
say
a fag, right?
He might. Again, it's hard for me. I'm very new to this.
Wait, you're new to what? Catholicism? What do you
well, honestly, it's very humbling once you start reading anything written by somebody whose name is Saints. Anything that.
Okay, so now it's clear.
And,
so what? No, wait, hold on. So what everyone needs to know now, right, is like, why did Michael Weimer call the Pope a fag? Why is that? No, why did you need to say that? We all heard it.
I said that he issued a letter. He issued a letter to the bishops. He issued a letter to the bishops contradicting J.D. Vance's statements. He did not name J.D. Vance. It was not a direct confrontation, but it was a subtweet, as the kids say. I would not use the word that Thad used. I would probably use the word effeminate, which is different.
Keep going.
But I mean, I'm really not in a position to call anybody effeminate. But I think if I'm trying to be accurate, I think I'm just as effeminate.
So, but just a quick question. So, but what do you call him in private? When you're not like on a live stream, like what do you call him? Do you say
the thing is
wait, no, just a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're like hanging out like just in private having like beers with your Nazi friends, like do you say, oh, the Pope is he's effeminate? Is that what you guys say? You say he's effeminate, or do you say something else?
No, I mean,
I'm just curious.
I think
what
effeminate is the right word. I think
no, it's not.
It's
not the right word. Yes.
Confusing is another word I've heard flown around a lot. Is that he's very confusing in his messaging. The thing is, if you actually read what he says, especially he's a lot more conservative than people give him credit for.
He's a Catholic after all.
Yeah. He's. I was reading a book of his the other day that's a collection of his homilies, and just randomly opened it to a page, and he's like, "Why are people calling me a communist? I'm not a communist. No, communism, that's wrong. Absolutely no, communism, no." So if you actually listen to what he says as opposed to take headlines, you'll find that he's still in a a ways
a semi-fag. Oh.
Yeah.
But
the half, as Andrew Dice Clay would say.
Half?
Yeah.
He's mixed. He's mixed.
No, but the word effeminate means to taken into pleasure, to not feminine, but somebody who is probably
I got it. I got the point.
He likes the pomp and circumstance of the position. He likes the role of the position. He likes being kind. He likes
kind.
Yeah, the joy that he gets from being revered and giving feelings of relief to others and championing people like illegal immigrants, and the praise that he gets for that it might cloud his judgment sometimes, maybe.
What were we getting at here? Why did we bring up Pope Francis?
I think it's important. It's important because the Pope, I mean, the Catholic Church is a large international institution that used to receive billions of dollars of USAID funding in their charities. This is a big
to support the rape of children. Is that
support
what they did?
To support the flow of illegal immigrants into the United States. Also, you've got J.D. Vance being an openly practicing Catholic, and you've got Catholicism in the United States is often coded as right wing. You had Biden, who used to be Catholic, sort of Catholic, the Kennedys, right. Pelosi, but you've got.
I mean, I will say this about Biden. I mean, the thing that's really authentic about his Catholicism is his sniffing of children.
Is the sniffing of children? Yeah.
That does tell me that he's truly a Catholic.
Yeah, he's integrated.
Loves the kids, but other than that, I don't see a Catholicism in him.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
But again, it's one of the churches that doctrinally has stuck to social conservatism, that has held the line on abortion, that has held the line on gay marriage in its teachings. And so converts to Catholicism are more right wing. A lot of the online right is Catholic in that they like that discipline. They like the culture war aspect of it. J.D. Vance is one of those, and he is emblematic of that. Peter Thiel has pumped billions of dollars into, well, maybe not billions, but Peter Thiel has pumped a considerable amount of money into J.D. Vance himself and into the app Hallow, which is a Catholic, explicitly Catholic prayer app that has its own Catholic AI that probably tracks your data just as much as any other social media app, but it's done by the same guy who does Palantir, investing in it. So I think the position that the Catholic Church finds itself in right now is actually very determinative in the broader question of things politically. Its teachings don't clearly align with either party. Pope Francis has explicitly opposed Trump and has explicitly not been bothered by Biden, not been bothered by more progressive politicians, and has made moves to oppose Trump in very explicit ways. And he's also older, and he might be on his way out. And where USAID money figures into this, and where the demographics of voters and Catholic support plays out is very critical in our modern political landscape. It's more important than it used to be, especially in a post-woke world where institutions like the church are going to get more power.
Here's a question. How many Catholic children would have been molested if the USAID had not existed? I'm going to say fewer. USAID, NED, you said this, State Department, in many ways has funded Catholic churches and organizations across the world when they comported with American imperial interests, right? They got money and funding and support. And then the priests in those places around the world, not all of them, of course, but many of them, like so many of them, then went out and molested children, some of whom I've known personally, who were molested as children when they were Catholic kids. Don't you think the USAID supported this thing?
What timeline?
You want to go somewhere else. You want to change the subject real quick?
I'm asking your anecdotes. How old are these people? Like, was this happening in, my guess
10,
is
9, 7, 10. I mean,
I'm talking about 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Like, when chronologically would these molestations have taken place?
I mean, so my first girlfriend was molested by her Monsignor in Lexington, Kentucky in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
That was the first I heard of this. I never knew about like priests fucking kids until then. She told me about that back then. And of course, then since then we've heard all sorts of things about priests having lots of sex with lots of children in the church. What are you getting at?
That wasn't a focal point at all of my point. The scandal of the church. Yeah. So I mean, there's apologetics for that I don't. Bottom line, it's the one true church. So the number of molestations should be 0, period. But I think the broader I don't think USAID funds that in particular. I think USAID funds Jesuits bringing in illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, but the church has gotten funding
Yeah.
Right. So if the United States government is giving funding of any kind to the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
the Catholic Church is benefiting and being strengthened in its ability to rape kids.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know I'm speaking not terribly respectfully about your religion.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
saying,
it's
and
political.
You know me. I love
Yeah.
I love
I know.
Catholics. You know.
Well, except
I do. It's my favorite
Yeah.
denomination. It is. I
Uh-huh.
love them. They smell the incense. They smell good. They drink wine. They dance. And then Catholic girls, man. Like, those are my first 4 girlfriends were all Catholic girls. And boy, Frank Zappa told us about them. So we have a lot to thank the Catholic Church for.
I brought it up because
mostly the girls. Yeah.
I brought it up because Pope Francis is agreeing with you on this. Is that Pope Francis is agreeing with you on JD Vance issue?
Yeah, but he's a fag, so who cares? Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, man. Listen, we gotta go.
Okay.
I'm to end this by trashing your religion.
Well,
but you know I love you, and I love Catholics. I do.
It's the third rail, and we're already. I mean, you brought it up with 2 minutes left, and
I know. That's my joy.
Yeah. But again, broader, I think it's worth paying attention to how Pope Francis is putting himself in opposition to a pretty traditionalist Catholic vice president, somebody who centers his Catholic faith in his public life in a way that Pelosi, Kennedy, Biden don't. They usually fall on it as a backbone of, I'm just generically Christian. But, Vance is somebody who is quoting St. Augustine and somebody who is really putting it out front and center, and it's part of his identity as somebody from the dissident right. And the face of the church is changing. And to your point about the molestation, the new class of priests from all reports are becoming more conservative and there is less gay. Yes. There's a lot of the interior answer that you'll get from Catholics on this is that there was a wave of priests starting after World War II who were gay, and it was a boys' club. They were sequestered. But
this is it.
Yeah,
this is it. Dan Savage, by the way, right? The lefty gay commentator from Seattle.
Yeah,
he lays it out because he was raised a Catholic in Chicago, like a real, true Catholic family, Chicago family.
Yeah,
Irish Catholic. That's what he said. He said when he was coming up as a kid in a Catholic family in Chicago, it was very clear that if you were gay, you were expected to become a priest because that is where you could be gay and still be okay and still be loved and still be honored and still have respect because you would then be celibate. And actually the priesthood was, I guess he's saying this, considered by many Catholics to be the place where gay men go.
Yeah.
And the problem was, it turns out, that once you fill the priesthood with gay men, many of them young gay men, with, guess what, sexual desires, with dominion, power, and control over their flock, congregations, which include many, many, many children, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. There's also, just like anywhere else, there's a power structure. There's a reason why powerful men get covered up for. It's political for sure. There's more we could go into this on this, but also seminarians at that time were like 13, 14. These are like pubescent boys discovering themselves under the direction of older gay men. Pope Benedict wrote something about this, that this is a problem within the church that needs to be uprooted. And part of what I was saying is Pope Francis seems to also be rewarding some of the more progressive bishops who are entwined in the scandal with high level positions in DC as the Bishop of DC. So So
I just want to say real quick
Yeah.
before we go, like the fact that the Catholic Church is gay is one of the reasons I like it so much. So I don't want to denigrate that part of it. It's honored tradition. No, it's the queerest Christian denomination by far, which makes it so interesting. And it's a reason I love you, by the way, just so you know that. But we should probably go now before we get
before
murdered.
Or we get forced to keep talking about our
God's
feelings.
wrath. What's God going to do to us for this? I don't know, man.
No, it's feelings.
Yeah. Listen.
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, shoot, we never talked about Ye, and one thing.
He hates Jews. He hates Jews. Ye is an illiterate moron who doesn't like Jews and blames them for all his problems, and that's all you need to know about Ye. Can we never talk about him again?
Well, I just want to say that if he wanted to be, it's disappointing that he had 3 years to be on this crusade, and he still was using a payment processor owned by Harley Finkelstein. Like
Finkelstein,
yeah.
He's not Jewish, is he?
If you're serious about this crusade, if you're serious about what you're doing, get your own payment processor. Is all I'm saying. It's like.
Well, wait. If you want to like separate yourself from Jews,
yeah,
and you want to make money, and have money,
yeah,
I think there's no way around it. I think you're going to have to deal with Jews.
And that's the thing is he needs to take up the calling of poverty. He needs to take up the calling of poverty and chastity, like Jesus calls him to.
Oh, snap! That's it.
It's
voluntary poverty is the way that you escape the Jews.
Totally.
Which is the original teachings of Jesus.
Yeah. Poverty and chastity.
This is not a stupid argument. That could be read in that way, that Jesus was saying the whole voluntary embrace of poverty, right, is a way to escape the Jews. And Jesus was one of them, so he knew them. Could be, man.
Yeah.
Another reason to be anti-Semitic. This is good. So we began the show with a Ku Klux Klan rant manifesto, and we're ending it with the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I feel good. You feel good? You must feel nice.
I mean,
I bet your body's like tingling right now, isn't it?
I feel like I need a shower. I feel like
no, you don't. You just need to bask in your glory right now.
Yeah. All right, after show time.
Right, we got to go.
Yeah.
The after show. If you want to come and hang out with Michael and me, the after show, which follows every Unreported on Wednesday night. Share the link. Got the link. You got to become a patron of this show. But you know what? Even if you don't want to hang out with us, and even if you hate us, but you watch this show, you got to give us the $5 a month because we need it. Michael needs a new wardrobe. I need a new plant for this prop right here. A lot of things we have a lot of needs. So give us your money because we really, really need it to be better as people and as anti-Semites and as Nazis and as racists. We need to be better at those things. So please go to patreon.com/unregistered and join, become a member, just support us. And if you want, you can join us at the high level, the Unregistered Academy level on Patreon, which gives you access to all the courses at Unregistered Academy, including the live courses and all the streaming courses. You get to participate in the most amazing alternative education project in American history. And I'm not exaggerating, so I think you should do this. Patreon.com/unregistered. Help us out, join up, join the movement, join the cause. Michael, thank you. You are awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, is the Bible next week already at the Academy? It was just 2 seconds
2 weeks.
for race and racism? Okay.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Soon.
Oh, yeah, we got one more session of race. Yeah.
Correct. No, Save Your Nation. But yeah.
Save Your Nation.
Then the Bible happens in 2 weeks. So go to unregisteredacademy.com. Check out our whole slate of the winter term. Our courses for the winter term are all up there. Help us out. Bring us in. Join us. It's an amazing movement. Thank you, Michael. I'll
Cool.
see you on the other side.
Peace. We're out.
Peace.